good things. Coming. Okay. Again, welcome. I told you about your PTUs, your golden tickets. And objectives today, we're going to hear from somebody on the Chapter 63 Early Learning Standards, and then we're going to hear from somebody who's going to share high-yield strategies for early literacy classrooms and instruction. And that's the gist of it for this series or this session in the series. And then we'll come back to this later. I'm going to turn it right over to our first speaker today, our expert in early childhood, Miss Allison Wilson. And let's get started.
Jackie, I think I need sharing permissions.
You probably do. Did that help?
It did.
All righty.
Okay. All right. I think that everything should be set up. And yeah, I am excited to talk with you all today. Specifically about unpacking Montana's new early learning developmental domains and content standards, which are within the administrative rule or Chapter 63, as we call them. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Dr. Allison Wilson, and I'm an associate professor of early childhood education at the University of Montana. I also direct our Institute for Early Childhood Education, which includes our lab school as a demonstration site, and also where we do research and other community outreach. Let's see. Okay. To get started and tell you all just a little bit about myself and background, I've been working with and on behalf of young children and families for more than 20 years now. And I always love putting these photos up in new presentations where I don't know a lot of folks, but these were my very first preschool, pre-K, and early kinder classrooms that I taught. All of these students that you see on the screen are in college now or doing something else, and that is very, very exciting. And I love thinking back to my days where I was working directly in the classroom and still get to on occasion. These days, my role is more associated in higher education. So specifically, I'm preparing teachers to get their preschool through third grade teaching certificates and early childhood endorsements at the undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral degree levels. But I do get to work closely with community partners and go into classrooms, and I'm grateful for that opportunity to stay connected. So very appreciative of everything that everyone on this webinar is doing. So a little bit about what kind of a very brief agenda for what we're going to talk about today. As Jackie mentioned, and that is outlined in the topic for your webinar today, we're going to unpack the Montana Early Learning Development domains and content standards. As part of that, I also am going to touch just a little bit of on considerations for your physical and learning environment, which is specifically addressed in those Chapter 63 standards. I will share a couple resources that you can have for later. There's a few QR codes throughout the slides that I have today, which I love to use because they're great for bookmarking things and coming back to them later. And certainly, if you don't catch one on a slide, it's great that this is being recorded so you can grab it later. And we will also have time for questions at the end as well, too. Okay, so in looking at, if you were to pull up, and so I have one of our first QR codes here that you can scan to access online the official page for the administrative rule or Chapter 63, Early Childhood Education Standards. What you will find in this document is a lot of stuff that in no way possible could we talk about in 45 minutes today. But a lot of great information related to definitions, class sizes, procedural things, The points that you see bolded and in this maroon color are what we're going to talk about today. So specifically, a couple of important definitions, the early learning developmental domains and content standards, and how those connect with implications for your physical and learning environment. A lot of other stuff I know will be talked about in more in depth through later webinars that you'll have in this early literacy series. So this is one resource that you can scan to open up now. But maybe an easier one to unpack that is more what I would say approachable is this particular guidance document, which can be found on the OPI's Early Literacy Resources page. And when you scan this particular QR code and look to the right of the page, you'll see a number of blue links, and one of them is tagged as a new resource, and that is this guidance document here. And the first page looks like the screenshot that you see there. So I'm going to use this tool to talk through some of our initial components today, and I've extracted some language from this particular document to share with y'all to get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start with a couple, two specific definitions that are called out in the Chapter 63 standards that are important. And the first one is the term or phrase developmental domain. And so as you'll see here, that definition is right here on the screen, and I'll go ahead and read it for you. Developmental domain means the broad, interrelated categories or dimensions of early childhood development, reflective of early childhood education children's learning and growth. What I think is important about the first component of this definition is the interrelated categories, that specific phrase, which is really important for later understanding of unpacking those later standards. Those four core domains are social and emotional, physical, language, and cognitive. The second definition, which is much more language intense, is lengthier in narrative, is up here on the screen, is with regard to early childhood curriculum. And this definition is listed second because it incorporates an understanding of how early childhood domains are defined. But essentially, it's an articulated educational plan for young children grounded in research-based understandings of child development and developmentally appropriate practices. Early childhood curriculum guides the teaching process from identifying, obviously, what to teach, including, as y'all are probably very familiar with, early content standards in each of those four developmental domains that were listed on the previous slide, how to teach. So there's information about this throughout the Chapter 63 standards. That includes developing learning experiences that are based on individual and group outcomes, assessing what's learned, and very, very importantly, using those data to inform your future planning and teaching. As we all are aware, children who are enrolling in these early literacy targeted intervention classrooms or home-based jumpstart programs, they're qualifying based on a data marker. And so it's important to remember that and use that as a guiding resource when planning your curriculum. Importantly, to understand here in the language is that the curriculum must embrace the four developmental domains while focusing on the subject area of literacy. Obviously, with that end goal of supporting a trajectory of third grade on third grade reading rates levels. I think that, again, part of what I am going to attempt to do with a nod as we go through the specific content standards and domains is really make a connection between how literacy can and should be integrated in those developmental domains for young children, and how in doing so that is ultimately going to promote a research-based understanding of child development, and also what we refer to as developmentally appropriate practices, also referenced in this definition. Okay, so we're past the definitions, and now we're going to dive into the section 110 of domains and content standards. If you were in the, let's see, oops, sorry. Let me go back. If you were in the first document that's listed online, not the guidance document, you would need to click down later on in the page. But if you are in that awesome resource that these folks created, the abbreviated guidance document, that document goes straight into this information. But important to, again, underscore and remember that the development of communication, language, and literacy skills is critical for supporting the growth in all of the other domains of development that we mentioned before. So social and emotional, physical, cognitive, etc. So all developmental domains are applicable for the public preschool programs and any early literacy targeted intervention implemented through a classroom-based program for 4-year-olds and any summer jumpstart that might be preceding kindergarten. Okay. So we'll start right off in looking to unpack specifically the language domain, which is referencing both communication and comprehension in oral and written language. In here, you will see language around important content standard, important information around these domains, that language instruction in these early literacy target interventions, or ELTI, I think I'll just use that as an abbreviated phrase, ELTI programs, should include opportunities for children to develop receptive language, expressive language, social language, and of course provide support for dual language learners. So what this looks like, and this for many of y'all is not going to be unfamiliar to you. It's opportunities for students to use listening and observation skills, for them to use sounds, facial expressions, gestures, words to help others understand their needs, ask questions, express feelings, etc. Those are all functional skills that children need to not only just to access curriculum, right? But most importantly and initially to navigate the classroom, to understand rules and procedures and expectations. And already just within these definitions, I'm sure that y'all can begin to think about how providing opportunities for explicit instruction in these areas can connect with areas like social emotional development and skill building opportunities. So for each of these domains and content standards, I have kind of just a little nod of examples of what this can look like. I think that when thinking about language instruction, which is so critical and such a significant predictor of later third grade reading markers and kindergarten entry, is the opportunity to engage in really language-rich, quality conversational exchanges. And what that looks like is really thinking about opportunities to provide, move from what I often in our field call thin conversations to thicker conversations. And so those thick conversations are those that are rich in opportunities for children to respond and to connect to background knowledge and to utilize and practice understanding new vocabulary words. So some of the strategies, some quick tips and trick strategies that can be embedded within your regular exchanges with children as they're washing their hands, as they're putting a backpack in a cubby, as they are unzipping a lunchbox or zipping up a coat, are over here. So thinking about taking turns, providing that pause time that allows children an opportunity to respond, following up with another open-ended question after a statement that a child has made. Comment on what a child's doing. I think probably the easiest thing to do right off the bat is to label and name what it is that you're doing. So a broadcasting strategy. So kind of just like someone who might be narrating the Olympics on TV is a more recent reference, describing what you see children doing, what you're doing. I'm walking to the whiteboard and I'm going to write down our schedule for today. Or I see that that you're using blocks to build a tower and you've used 4 blocks, and now I see that you're choosing to use some people. Tell me more about that. But again, offering those opportunities for language-rich conversation across the day. A couple other examples here. What I was just describing as far as strategies and just general conversation is largely also taken from best practices in good quality book reading with young children. So many of y'all may be familiar with dialogic reading specifically, or other models like shared book reading, etc., that provide a framework for how you can intentionally embed language-rich interactions through a book reading protocol. These are the same strategies that you can apply to just really good conversation in everyday moments with children as well too. Another image that I have up here is kind of a nod to a connection that I'll make at the end of this webinar as well, and that is how you can connect opportunities, or excuse me, offer opportunities for children to engage in reflective, language-rich conversation simply by what it is that you have on your walls as well too. So what you see up here is actually kind of the back of a board that is the center of a classroom's circle time area or morning meeting area. And they have a question of the day that's up there that is based on kind of what their unit of investigation is at that particular time. It happens to do with a question about light. And up here, you'll see images of children from the classroom that they are invited each morning to come up and add a conversational point about something that they remember doing from the day before, or again, having those images as a conversation starter. You'll also see a lot of writing that's up there, especially with young children who may not be at the stage where they themselves can write in a way that's legible and readable. That opportunity is still offered for them, but the classroom teacher does well to dictate and provide meaning to their purposeful language, which is up there on the board as well too. Okay, so also in the language domain is language around ensuring that there is opportunities for literacy instruction that includes written language, written communication, print awareness, and speech development. I think if we were to go back to even looking at a couple of those examples on the previous slide, we can see where those opportunities are. In some ways, it's almost challenging to talk about these in separate instances because there are such rich and meaningful opportunities within the context of a classroom where you compare good quality language development, vocabulary conversation with opportunities to write, and whether it is fully developed writing, or if it's scribbling for meaning, or it's using images in order to tell a story itself. So we want to ensure that students have built an understanding and interest in symbols, sounds, rhythms of written language, and develop an awareness that printed word can be used for various purposes. So in that earlier image, there was print being modeled to use as a reflection tool, as well as to as an anchor to mark, what the daily question is. The example that you see up here is an opportunity that children had to embed their writing into a plan to develop a blueprint, which later was going to be created out of a variety of materials. So essentially, there was a design challenge around building a particular house. Larger picture, this investigation into building houses was a part of a bigger unit, and children had the opportunity to share information about their own home, other places that animals, insects might call home, what are those characteristics, etc. So again, these opportunities for language-rich conversation, for practice in writing and revisiting writing, are anchored in what we would call authentic experiences that children have the opportunity to offer background knowledge, context, and prior understandings too. This last example that I have as part of the language and literacy domain is another documentation display that was on the back of some shelves in a 4 and 5 classroom. And what this teacher did, and what I'll give you some context for here, is that this was an embedded writing opportunity that children were invited to engage in towards the middle to later end of the school year, after they had opportunities to practice some explicit strategies, etc. So this is not the first day of school. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified. But what is the same and consistent across from the first day of school to this point in time that this photo reflects is this constant display of children's work and dictation of children's writing. So what this teacher has now done and added in here is this prompt that is a speech bubble, and they've learned about what a speech bubble is, what that means. They might have seen them in stories that they were reading. They might have created a story using speech thought bubbles together on the whole group, and also in some small group opportunities. And this teacher has placed them on the documentation display so that children can go up, revisit their work, reflect on what happened, and they can write in a narrative that they feel might fit to that story. And the accuracy of it isn't really what's important, of if they're, recalling exactly what they did do or did say, but they are getting a chance to engage in an authentic writing experience that's really anchored in something that's interesting and meaningful to them, which is what we want to see as authentic literacy experiences. Okay, so before I move into the other domains, I just have this kind of summary slide that has a few quick strategies. Again, knowing that this is recorded and we only have a brief amount of time, I wanted to put some stuff in here that y'all could come back to. But in thinking about ways that you can embed really authentic language-rich communication and conversation throughout your daily routines, starts from right when children enter the door. So thinking about opportunities to greet children, perhaps there is a menu choice board for how children might select to sign in for the day, or maybe their way that they're signing in moves from writing their name to then writing their response to a question of the day. And the way that they respond is through written dictation. Maybe they draw a picture. Maybe that then develops into a more intentional journaling routine that is kind of upon entrance to the day, which also serves as a preview to what you might be teaching, or reflection of what happened the day before or the week before, depending. Always thinking about providing materials that are interesting to children to write with. So having a variety of writing materials that children can self-select from, and also content. So having a variety of different reasons that children might want to write. And that, I think that motivation behind writing and conversation is significant with young children. Yeah. This last one I just want to continue to highlight, and that is that these opportunities for language-rich conversations and writing there are far-reaching opportunities throughout your daily routines that really those non-structured times can be just absolutely amazing periods of time. Depending on what your classroom routine looks like, and what your kind of school routine is looking like, meal times and snack times are just really rich, incredible experiences for children to engage in building content knowledge and having rich vocabulary rich conversations as well too, as are these kind of what I refer to often as kind of captured moments, or these transitional times, which are typically opportunities where children might disengage and display, behaviors that are less than desirable. If you're waiting for other children to join you for your morning meeting or your afternoon circle, whatever it might be, and there's a couple minutes, we've got some stragglers, or folks are finishing washing their hands, whatever it might be, it's a great time to just quickly and engage in some quick rhyming songs, other open-ended conversations to capture children's attention and keep them engaged. Okay. Um, so I'm not going to talk about this too much because it's almost repetitive in some ways of looking at the language and literacy domain. But there is this very important connection to Montana's early learning content standards, specifically ELA and literacy. And in any of the Montana's ELTI classrooms, whether it be a home-based Jumpstart or classroom-based program, these are the standards that are absolutely essential to be accountable for. And those pertain to early reading, print development and writing, speaking and listening, and language. As you can gather, because you're all very smart individuals, the connection between those developmental domains of language and literacy are very clear here, and the same strategies apply as well too. Okay. So moving away from the language and literacy domains and ELA content standards in early learning to the additional domains that are mentioned in the Chapter 63 guidelines, which are social, emotional, physical, and cognitive. Already, just in some examples, we've maybe not explicitly highlighted, but noted some opportunities where there are some really obvious opportunities to integrate here. What you see on the page here is a screenshot, which I'm going to move away from because there's a lot of text on here, but this is a great section of the guidance document that was linked earlier on OPI's early literacy page. So let's think about starting the first one that's listed there, social and emotional development domain. In the Chapter 63 standards, this particular domain is underscoring the importance that children have the opportunity to gain skills and practice in the areas of culture, family, and community skills instruction. And so this is explicit instructional opportunities, social development, skill instruction, emotional development, skill instruction. And so what this might look like is opportunities for children to understand and appreciate similarities and differences among themselves and others. A connection that's, beyond that we've already mentioned previously is thinking about the study of different homes that I mentioned before, and there was a writing opportunity which also connected to a STEM design challenge, but that was all built on a period of time with explicit instruction and intentional learning opportunities of understanding all about me and all about my home family, about my school family, about my community, etc. So that's going to touch on those aspects of culture, family, and communities. So basic principles of how communities function, including work roles, etc. Social development skills are explicit strategies that help young children to develop trust and relationships with each other and the important adults that are within their school family as well too. Strategies that support successful interaction with peers that pertain to cooperation and negotiation and empathy, etc. And all of those things that I just mentioned, cooperation, negotiation, empathy, recognizing and naming emotions, all come with their own set of rich vocabulary words that children don't just come filled with. These are opportunities to really explicitly teach that language so that children can then practice and use it in the context of their classroom community, and that's in connection with language and literacy as well too. Some photos that you see up here pertain to a beginning of the year unit of study that a classroom that I've worked with has done. And it's a 6-week investigation that's kind of learning all about, it starts with all about me, all about my family, my school family, and then our school community. And it starts with what I think is very important for young children when they begin to enter school and at the beginning of school is understanding names. You know, what's my name? What's my friend's name? What's my teacher's name? What's what's our assistant teacher's name, whoever they might be interacting with, what's our principal's name, etc. And what's my name? And so here you'll see an anchor chart that was displayed in a classroom where children could um, present their name and through a reflective iterative process over time, do some research about their names and understand it. And uh, the display that's up here represents how children were able to respond and offer that information in a variety of ways that all connect with foundational elements of later reading. So we have scribbles with dictation by the classroom teacher. We have some children who are able to write with some recognizable letters. We have children who are drawing pictures. We have children who have brought in pictures and to add to the column specifically, who am I named after? All of which I think really speaks to the important opportunities that are available to differentiate based on where young children are. We know that children who are entering into our new ELTI programs, classrooms, are going to be at varying levels. And that would be true whether they qualified or not, just because of the nature of child development and the windows that, that children develop within. You'll also see up here kind of a later to the end, it's not the culminating project, or product, but what turned into a friends and family board where children had another repetitive opportunity to revisit and tell the story of their family. So you'll see images that are up there that children brought in of their family to the classroom to display. They then were offered opportunities to draw pictures about that showcase their family as well. And then they could write a number of anecdotes about their family. These ones that are on this board happen to be, because I'm aware of the context, happen to be selections of tidbits that children wrote themselves about their family that were actually taken from their journals. So they were doing this over time. And as they got through that process, they were then able to revisit and reflect that and then choose what they wanted to showcase from that series of journal entries to be on the Friends and Family Board as well too. So again, it's promoting opportunities for autonomy, for understanding the awareness of themselves, their uniqueness, and also how that the similarities and the differences between themselves and their classroom peers. Okay, the last two domains that are in the Montana Early Learning Standards for Chapter 63 is the physical domain and the cognitive domain. And this is also in the guidance document. And so you'll see that it calls out that for the physical domain, children should have the opportunity to practice and obtain skills as they relate to motor skills, both small and large muscles, as well as using their senses to explore and understand and observe the environment. This always makes me think of, which I wish I had an image of, but a familiar protocol that some of the classroom teachers that I've worked with have used, and that is kind of a senses scavenger hunt where they might have an image of, eyes and ears and nose, whatever, and they on one side, and then children might be asked to go around the classroom and document in whatever way, whether it's writing, emergent writing, drawing a picture, etc., what it is that they can smell around the room or out on the playground, what they can hear around their school, etc., what they might see. Again, another opportunity to connect and integrate across domains. The cognitive domain is critical, of course, and I would argue integrated throughout almost anything that you might do in your classroom. And the explicit skills that this area calls out that children should have the opportunity to engage with and practice with are really what are referred to as approaches to learning skills. So opportunities that allow children to develop curiosity through imagination, inventiveness, originality. And so going back to what I hope that you are able to see through some of these examples that I'm showing you, allowing children to have choice and flexibility and a variety of materials to work with so that they can have the opportunity to showcase innovation and using materials in new and innovative ways, and discussing why they're going to do that and how they might have or how they might do this differently or make something even better, etc. Again, the more open-ended opportunities that children have, the more rich opportunities you as a language facilitator will have to engage with young children through open-ended questioning, and the greater opportunity you'll have to connect to whatever background knowledge that children have. Other skills listed up here, ensuring that children have the opportunity to practice taking the initiative and engaging in self-direction through challenging and new tasks, right? So persistence and attentiveness, these are skills that we still continue to refine as adults, and certainly is a critical window within the early childhood age range for children to develop foundational dispositions for these skills. Lastly, reflection and interpretation skills. I had that earlier nod to a project wall that a classroom teacher had, and some other documentation displays, which were really intentional opportunities within a classroom environment, just the everyday environment, but also within a structured circle or morning meeting routine that gave children the opportunity to reflect. That reflection opportunity was also apparent in more one-on-one or small group learning opportunities, like through the journaling, where children were able to go back through, look at their journaling as it pertained to anecdotes and drawings about their family, review those and then select what they might want to showcase for an authentic purpose to be on their friends and family board. Yeah. An image here, there's kind of an unexpected prompt was at the small manipulatives table of in this classroom one day, and I was so excited to see it, so I took a photo. They were just kind of typical tabletop games and materials. What's not visible in this photo, which was the conversation starter or prompt, which sometimes in our lab school we'll call invitations, tabletop invitations. And again, this was in connection to an early year opportunity to investigate families. And so there was a display of a prompt with an image of what can you create that showcases or tells the story of your family using these materials. And so basic kind of Unix blocks. And so those structures, the green one, the little orange one, red one, and blue one, those are actually the members of this child's family. And so they created those with tangible materials. They then had the opportunity to create that using one-dimensional flat surface materials. And then they wrote the names of them. So it says Papa, Mama, James, and Ian. Okay. So we're getting close to wrapping up this time thinking about the Chapter 63 standards. And as I mentioned before, the last part of this document, which there's so many really rich and incredible pieces of information in there that are amazing guidance. So I do hope that everyone will go and unpack that a little bit more. But I did want to make a really clear nod, especially as we're launching into the school year, of opportunities to really connect and align those more teacher-facilitated teaching strategies and learning opportunities with your physical and learning environments. So in the Chapter 63, the 113 physical and learning environments, if you're on the very first online document, you could click into there, but I've extracted a portion of it here. Um, there is language about how the early childhood education program or those early literacy targeted intervention classrooms should ensure a safe and healthful learning environment by providing a written, predictable, but flexible schedule that provides intentionally planned routines and transitions. One thing that I would make a note of for this is the written predictable schedule that is posted in the classroom is fantastic. And it's even better to have images that are tied with that. They don't have to be images that remain the same. They can be pictures that start out that could then turn into photographs of the actual children in your classroom engaging in whatever that routine is, or maybe they then, depending on the developmental window of children that you're working with, maybe then they begin to illustrate kind of what that schedule looks like. But again, it's an opportunity to have and underscore a print-rich environment. That environment, or excuse me, daily schedule obviously is going to include daily indoor and outdoor activities, including planned learning center time where students have individual choice of activities. This really falls within, if we were to unpack specifically the phrase developmentally appropriate practices and in research-based strategies, having open-ended free choice or work time, whatever it is that you might call it, through learning centers where children are able to navigate throughout the classroom to intentionally design spaces that still have choice within them. Those are the opportunities that children are going to have that are really rich and authentic learning. That's where you as a classroom teacher have the opportunity to take on a unique role as a facilitator, as opposed to the other routines of your days where you might be teaching some explicit skills as they relate to language and literacy. These open-ended times are when children can apply and practice those in authentic and meaningful environments, and you can reinforce and redirect and reteach within those meaningful experiences. Again, daily opportunities to learn and play individually, in small groups, and as a whole group. So really ensuring that your classroom schedule and your daily routines have a mix of both child-directed and adult-directed teaching time, individual time, small group time, and whole group time as well too. And being thoughtful about how those transition between one another throughout the day. Okay. I see you coming on, Jackie.
Hello, friends.
Hi.
Let's see. Do you want to stop sharing,
Yeah.
or do you have something else to?
I have one more thing to share if
Go
I just
ahead,
can.
Allison.
Okay. I'm gonna skip past these particular strategies because everyone will be able to see them. So it's kind of a little pause here, but other kind of instead of, but try this ideas. So you can always pause on these. Um, and I just wanted to give a little nod to a couple resources to ensure that they're up here. So again, I recognize that anyone on this call is going to be using a variety of curriculums based on whatever makes the most sense for your community and your school environment. These two up here are broad resources that have a lot of examples and blogs on them that are really come from teachers in Montana and also across the country. And so I encourage y'all to check those out as some great ideas. I also wanted to give a nod, shameless plug to does have a graduate P3 certificate that you can do as it's meant to be job embedded, where a lot of these topics are explored more in depth. It is endorsable. It can lead to a master's degree, but doesn't have to. So that's a resource there. In the spring, we'll have our third annual Early Childhood Summit, where we will revisit and showcase and hear from early literacy teachers from across Montana and broader early childhood policies. And so I encourage folks to engage with that as well too. And this is my contact information, and then I can stop sharing. And
You can leave that up so that people can write your email down.
Awesome. But I am all done, Jackie.
So everybody take a deep breath and think for a moment if you have a question for Allison, something you need us to clarify, go ahead and do the hand raising function if you have a question you would like to ask.
I'm going to stop share.
Nobody has a question? Chelsea, you're first.
Thanks,
Hi.
Chelsea.
I just wanted to clarify because I missed some of the beginning and my apologies. The connection was bad for me driving. So the chapter, tell me again, the chapter 60, is it 63?
53. You got it.
Chapter 63, is that the same as the Montana Learning Standards from 2014, or how are they being up? Is that something that's been updated?
I believe that it's something that has been updated. But that document was a a guiding resource in all of this. So what the links that I was giving you materials to are all stem out of and were created in response to the passing of House Bill 352.
Okay.
So there's going to probably be some common language, but there's some updated stuff as well too. Go ahead, Jackie.
Chelsea, if you're referring to the MELS, the Montana Early Learning Standards,
Yes.
they're closely related, but they are not the same. And so if you are implementing a early literacy classroom program, you will want to be following the Chapter 63 standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Is there another question?
I got a question from Ruthie in the chat asking about what the teacher requirements for the 4-year-old program is. So those requirements would be the teacher would have either a P3 or a K8 endorsement.
There's also a question, Allison, could you put the third to the last screen up?
Yes.
With the links that somebody wanted to grab a few.
I will do that. Give me 1 second. Of course, when I closed it out, everything just closed.
Just so you know, this recording will end up on the OPI website. You can go and scroll through and stop if there's something that you were looking for. You can also email or call Kimberly Evans or myself, or Allison has shared her email address. One of the things we're hoping to get out of this learning series is a community of support for one another. So feel free and please do. Let's see, Chelsea, it looks like there's the QR code you were wondering about. And then some of you, I know that not everybody on here is implementing an early literacy classroom. Some of you are teaching in the higher and upper grades. You will notice that the topics will become more and more relevant to what you're teaching as we move through this series. So please don't lose interest. And of course, all of this is important for you to know when you have a kiddo come to your class who is not yet demonstrating grade level literacy skills. This is all places where you can look back to see where you can start filling in those gaps. So another call for questions. I don't see any more hands up.
I have another question in the chat about the screening process for 4-year-olds. So that process would be your district would determine which tool, which there's a list of recommended evaluation methodology tools that we have on our website. And there's a separate list for those students that are 4-year-old students. And so you would go ahead and look at that list and pick one of those that would address those literacy skills that we're looking for students to be able to manage and achieve. And if that's something, if you're not going to use one of the required, we just ask that you would have to go ahead and provide assurances that the screener that you're using does meet the requirements in the bill.
And this sounds like a good spot to let you know that if you have further questions about that, there will be a feedback form at the end of the next presentation. And we would just ask that you put your further questions in there so we can make sure that we get those answered for you. But for now, it looks like we could take a 5-minute break because I'm sure that everybody could use an afternoon drink and a restroom break. But we will start at 3:58. So come right back and we'll get started with our the rest of our presentation today.